hello, and welcome to this introduction to Ace Parenting Together. This is a new podcast that we're hoping to share with you. My name is Babak Sarajri, and I started Boundless Parent, and my co-host here,
Hi,
Mel.
I am Melissa LaPlante, and actually, the really cool thing is that Babak and I became certified instructors for parent effectiveness training together. So this is such a cool experience to be able to do this and share our passion together. I am a pediatric speech and language pathologist and have worked with families and children for over 25 years. And I was raised on parent effectiveness training. My father was an instructor many, many years ago. And so when I was able to take enough time to travel and do the intensive training, I knew I was going to be able to carry the torch in our family to continue the legacy of parent effectiveness training.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
When I learned about that the first day of the workshop that we attended together, it was like, wow, this is really cool. This like you always hear about the history of parent effectiveness training, and it was like having some of that history in real life. So I am a father of five kids, and two of them are my biological kids, and two of them are step children, and one is a foster daughter. By training, I'm a physicist, so this is kind of very far from my everyday work. But of course, we are all, parents every day, and
Mhm.
members of our families every day. So this has been something that I've been thinking about and reading about, since before my children were born, but also after, and especially after. And in the past 10 years or so, I became aware of and then more steeped in parent effectiveness training. And so last year, I finally took the leap to becoming an instructor, so that I can also help our parents here locally, but also everywhere else. And it's been a really great experience.
That is so cool. I can't hear that story enough. How you have such a beautifully blended family. And I guess it would be my turn to mention that I have two children. I have a daughter who is 20, and she is studying health sciences at Florida Gulf Coast University. And then I have a 14-year-old boy who just started his freshman year of high school. So I've had a lot of experience with many, many different age ranges. So
Right.
wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And of course, you work with families and with children also in your practice.
Yeah, so I have working in the field as a speech pathologist, in particular when we do early intervention. That is mostly parent coaching, parent training, and so I have been training parents and working with families for many, many years. And so I have a particular passion to help parents feel more successful and more effective at
Right.
parenting their children.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really a great line of work. I was one of the parents who received some training from one of your colleagues in past lives,
Yep,
because one of our children had, delayed speech. They called it, I
sure.
think, his daycare, and so it was very helpful because I realized that some of the things that we were doing basically were delaying his speech because
Yeah,
he would point at something and we would just provide it and things like that,
sure, sure.
which is fine if all he needed was just to point at things and we would provide it. But of course, he also needed to develop his language.
Sure.
Um, and so that's kind of a similar experience with parent effectiveness training because lots of times, one of the things that we talk about, of course, is we, see a problem, we jump in and solve it. And that, in the moment might feel right, but of course, the consequence of that overall is that the child actually is kind of overridden and, forget about whether the solution that we provide is right or wrong for the child in that moment, but their wishes are not probably considered appropriately. So my kids range from 8 all the way to 19. So we are squarely in the teenage years. You know, as you see the children grow up and all the amazing things that they can do, and they branch out and grow to do is really amazing.
Absolutely. What I love about being able to do this podcast is there's so much out there. It's overwhelming. There's book after book after book, and millions of parenting sites on social media. Where do you go? And so I want to be able to offer parents the ability to feel successful as a parent, effective as a parent, while at the same time connecting with their children and the others in the house. And the more that practice takes place with using that type of parenting, the stronger the connections become. And I truly attribute that to why I have such a strong relationship with both of my children. So this is just a really unique opportunity.
Yeah, that connection is really important. And you're right, there's so much out there as a parent, as a new parent, when I was starting to look at to learn more, what my job was and what I can do, and so on. There was so much, even then, almost 20 years ago, there was a lot. But today with social media, of course, there's a lot. And our hope here is that we are not adding to the noise, right? We're providing actually a good signal because we have come to understand and see some of the benefits of tools like parent effectiveness training. Yeah. Now, I want to take that opportunity and also talk about the name of this podcast, of this effort. We decided to call it ACE Parenting Together. And ACE is an acronym, actually, which stands for Authentic, Connected, and Empathic. And you mentioned connection, and I think authenticity is also really important, because a lot of the advice that we see really is kind of, you feel like you have to become someone else to actually be able to use those tools. And I think that is a pretty big obstacle, because you don't feel that you're yourself when you implement them. And what I have found with thinking about parenting and also using parent effectiveness training is that this actually enables one and parents to become more of themselves and get in touch with themselves and their own needs and their children's needs to be able to be effective.
Yeah, I was leafing through a couple of the parenting books and notes I've taken over time, and there was a quote that I read about why parenting is so difficult, and effective parenting. Why does that feel sometimes so overwhelming? And the truth is, it's hard because to parent effectively means in order to guide your child through an emotional situation and help them to become emotionally regulated, you first have to work on your own emotional regulation. And so it's very difficult sometimes, like you said, to step away from what you typically do as a parent and come at it from a different perspective. It can be scary, because one of the things that I get a lot of questions with using these strategies is, isn't it the same as parenting without rules, or aren't you just basically giving in to them? And in fact, that's not the case. When we use these strategies and that then allow our children to come to the conclusion of how to solve a problem, or how to regulate their emotions, they then become more independent and responsible for their own behavior reactions, as well as being extremely in tune with others.
Absolutely, yes. And that brings us to the E of ACE, which is empathy, which is getting in tune with, the emotions of both yourself, of course. You need to show empathy towards yourself, but also others and the children, because without understanding those underlying emotions and feelings and being able to reflect on them, it's really hard to go, building a connected relationship. And a lot of the advice that I see also out there really focuses a lot on the behavior and how you would manipulate or manage or change the behavior. And it kind of loses sight of what is underneath that behavior. There is, a need, there is some desire, there is a reason really for the behavior. And so the kinds of things that we talk about in parent effectiveness training really brings those out to the fore and makes them explicit, so that then you can talk about them and address them and meet those needs eventually. Exactly. Without anybody really being overridden.
Yeah.
Okay, so why are we doing this podcast? So we mentioned that we care about helping parents, and both of us do. We are parents ourselves, so we have been on this journey, and we would like to share it. And we would like to have more signal than noise. What else comes to mind?
When you reached out to me with this idea, I immediately jumped on it, simply because what an awesome opportunity to reach people all over the world. Right. We live in a day and age where technology has people across the world at our fingertips. And like you said, sort of rising above the noise and focusing on stronger family relationships and stronger connection between parents and their kids. And how do we do it? There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of books, there's a lot, like you said, there's just so much stuff to leaf through. And what I want to do by doing this podcast with you is allow parents to hear that even though you and I are trained instructors, and even though I've worked with kids for over 25 years and parent coached and was raised with PET, I'm still making mistakes.
Right.
And so one of the strongest messages I want to convey in doing this podcast is to let parents know that the most effective parent is perfectly imperfect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And parenting is, as you said, is a really hard job. There's no manual, right? There's nothing that you can follow. You kind of make your way, and sort of course, there's lots of instinct, and there's lots of previous patterns. But some of those previous patterns, maybe not in your case because you were raised with PET from the start. But some of those previous instincts for me and patterns for me are kind of adding to the problem. They make the situation worse, and so breaking that cycle is really important, right? So that's something that I would like to do also. And like you said, of course, we all make mistakes. We need to acknowledge that and improve, and that's really at the core here.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's a good place to stop for this introduction, and we'll see how we'll continue to the next topic.